Hello, this is Mr. Collier, and today we're doing standard deviation and variance. Okay, so we've already learned about range and interquartile range, which are measures of how spread out data is. So today we're going to look at variance and standard deviation. So let's take a look at this set of numbers. First of all, if you get the mean of these numbers, the mean is actually equal to exactly 10. And well, another way to look at the way the numbers are spread out is to see how far away the numbers are from 10. So like for example, the number 6 is 4 away from 10, and the number 12 is 2 away from 10. So we can look at these kinds of relationships. Okay, so I'm going to start by making a little table here. So we're going to do this by hand and then use technology, because this kind of stuff can get pretty tedious. I'm going to write the x values in order, but you don't have to do this. I'm just going to do that to keep myself organized. So we've got 6, 8, we've got 2 9s, we've got 2 10s, we've got 11, and we've got 12, 12, and 13. Okay, and then I'm going to make another column called, you call it the deviations, like how far it deviates or how far it's different from the mean. So we'll call that deviations, or basically what we're going to do is the values minus the mean. Okay, that's how we get how far away it is from the mean. So 6 minus 10 is -4, -2, -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, 2, 2, 3. Okay, so notice I got some negative numbers here, right? And so if I subtract them, imagine myself doing this on a spreadsheet or something like that. I'll just have to type in like one cell, subtract another cell, so it'll spit out these numbers here, right? So one way to make these numbers all positive, to indicate a distance away from the mean, is to just get the absolute value of these numbers. That would make all these numbers positive. Another way to make all these numbers positive is to square the numbers. So what we can do is we can get the square of the deviations. Okay, so we're going to take the square of all these numbers, and it will make all these numbers positive. So we have 16, 4, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 4, 4, 9 are the squares of the deviations. Okay, so we have all those. Now, if we want to find out how far in general these values, how far they deviate from the mean, or how far they're different from the mean, we can get the average of the square deviations. Okay, so I'm going to add all these up, and then I'm going to divide. So actually I can add them all up. If you add them all up, you get 40. Okay, so the sum is 40. Another way to write sum is this. Okay, this is the summation of x minus the average squared. So if I add them all up, I get 40. And how many are there altogether? There are 10 values in this data set. So to get the average, I divide by 10. Okay, so if you do this calculation, you get a 4. So what I did is I took every x value, subtracted the mean, squared those values, added them all up, divided by 10, and I got this number 4. Okay, and this has a name and a symbol. This is called variance, and the symbol is sigma squared. That's the Greek letter sigma. Okay, so this is the variance. But remember now, here we had like 6 was 4 away from the mean, and 8 is 2 away from the mean. So these numbers are all a bit too big. They don't really indicate on average how far away these numbers are from the mean. So what we could do is we can square root this. Okay, so I'm going to write this like this. Square root of the sum of the x minus x bar squared over, I'm going to use n to be a bit more general, so n is the number of data values. So this is what we call the sigma, or the standard deviation. Okay, standard deviation. Okay, deviation just means like kind of how far these numbers are away from the mean. And it's standard deviation. I kind of like standardized this variable by taking the square root because I'm now back to the same scale as these numbers over here. So if I do the square root of 4, so in this case I'm going to have sigma, or the standard deviation, equals 2. Okay, this means sort of on average these numbers are 2 away from the mean. So that is how you calculate standard deviation by hand. Now, of course, if you got hundreds of these numbers, it's not really feasible to do it by hand, so we're going to use technology as well. Okay, so many computer programs and spreadsheets can easily calculate standard deviation and variance. We are going to do that with an HP prime now. So I'm going to get my HP prime ready. I'm going to go to apps. So these are the same numbers. I'm going to go to apps and one variable statistics, enter, and we're going to start typing in data here. Okay, so we got 13, 6, 12, 10. Just make sure you get them all and don't make a mistake. Oops, I made a mistake. So that should be 11, 9, 10, 8, 12, and 9. Okay, so next you just simply click on this button over here called statistics, and we have all kinds of useful things. N is 10, the number of data values. You get your 5-point summary, minimum, maximum, quartiles, sum of all the numbers, sum of the numbers squared. And over here you got standard deviation. So it's the standard deviation of the x values. And it is 2, just like we calculated by hand. Okay, and you'll figure out what all these other things are for later. Okay, so that's for a regular list of numbers. If you've got a group data, that's going to be a little bit different. Ignore these instructions. That's for a TI-84. So this means you have 3 11s and 4 12s. We could type them all in, I guess, but we can also just type in the frequencies into the calculator. Okay, so let's just hit escape here. So I can just actually, let me clear this out here first. I can do shift clear, column, enter, and that's cleared. And now I'm going to type in all these numbers here. 11, 12, 13, and so forth. Okay, 11, oops, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and there's a 19 there as well. Okay, and then in D2, I'm going to type in the frequencies. Be sure not to make a mistake. And 9, 5, and 8, 6. Okay, so I've got them all in there. And now what we need to do is we need to tell the calculator that these are frequencies. So actually we go to symbol, this button right here. And over here, make sure it's on histogram, and over here you can type in D2. Actually, you can click on this cell, go to column and D2, and press enter. So now this will take D2 as the frequencies. But I would recommend deleting this afterwards because you don't want this to always be the frequencies, like you will switch back and forth. So maybe just make sure you delete this afterwards so you don't make a mistake later on. Okay, so that's done, and I think I can just click escape now. Oops, now let's go, back to apps, one variable statistics, and if I go to stats now, see it gives me n equals 50, so I think I got the right answer because there's 50 values here. Otherwise, yeah, there's a total of 50. So this is correct now. Let's group the data. It's got the 5-point summary, and if you scroll down, you got the standard deviation down here somewhere. So standard deviation is 2.38. Okay, so you've got all the data you need. Maybe you can jot that down, write that down in your packet. But I would recommend going back to symbol. Let's go escape. Go back to symbol and deleting this D2 thing so you don't make a mistake later on.